In 1945 alone, toward the end of the war, the Allied used Operation Starvation, using 12,000 mines against the Japanese. They almost sealed the Japanese coast, not allowing vessels to go in or out. In World War II, 700,000, 7 lakh to 1 million mines have been deployed. And since World War II, in the modern days, in fact, 40 naval ships have been lost to mines against only 4 ships against other attacks as it has been there. In North Korea, US Navy suffered 70% of their casualty because of mines. And in the Gulf War, which is as recent, 19 ships have been damaged. Further, 1988 Iraq War, we had so many vessels being damaged over there. As late as 1988, USS Samuel B. Roberts was mined in the Gulf. 2014, 6 years back, Ukraine used mines against the Russian force in the Azov Sea in port of Mariupol. So it might have started years and years ago, but the use of mines and its deployment continues to be relevant even today. Let's just listen slightly to the history of mines.
Sir, we are unable to hear the audio.
No audio?
No audio, sir.
Oh, sad. Shall I switch it off?
I guess it would be better if you could explain this, sir.
Okay. They're showing how initially it was used in the American Civil War, and it became a very potent weapon to see how many ships were destroyed in that alone. So massive mining efforts were carried out. The Federal and the American Navy were fighting each other.
Like the video is there, you can, there may be the audio share, there may be a box.
Is there any audio?
Yeah, on the original where you put the video, there will be a box on share audio. That may be.
I put it full audio.
No, not your full audio, on your, where the screen is showing your, that. If you go back to that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There is a box which says share audio. And
okay,
share
I'll
video.
continue. I will not go on to that. I just see the pictures.
Okay, you go ahead.
They're showing submarines and aircraft were used for laying mines. I'll be explaining this. Okay, I'll continue. I plan to share today's sharing in the following heading. One is, what is the concept, the strategy, the impact and effectiveness of mine warfare? Second will be a general design or the construction of the mines and how are they deployed. Third will be the second part, mine countermeasures. What are the methods, armament, what are the ships and the vessels that we are going to use for it. Then we come on to the what is Indian Navy's capability, And lastly, there are some at the moment current international law regarding mine warfare. Let's have a little closer look at mines. What is the definition of a naval mine? A naval mine is an underwater explosive device designed to sink ships, submarines, and other seaborne aircraft, or by such threat to prevent them from using an area. So it is not only destruction. If you can't destroy, you can prevent a force from using a designated or a demarcated sea area so that they are unable to pursue their objectives over there. Naval mines have been therefore recognized and accepted as a relatively inexpensive weapon, but with significant operational and tactical and strategic value. A little more earliest use of sea mines is attributed to the Chinese Ming dynasty, who deployed mines in the 16th century to ward off pirates from the Chinese coast. We also have reference available to indicate that use of mine during the American Civil War in the 1860s and in a very extensive way in the Russo-Japanese War of 1904-05, resulting in the destruction of large number of ships on both sides, which also included, unfortunately, some merchant vessels which were innocent or had no part in the war. Naval mines became a very potent weapon during the First World War, and it continued to the Second World War, and as I said in the introduction, went on to the Vietnam War, Arab-Israeli War, and the Iran-Iraq War. Let's go, what is the concept of a naval mine? The main concept of a naval mine warfare is to place controlled and independent explosive devices in water bodies to cause physical damage or to restrict movement of the enemy waterborne vehicles, be it men of war or the warships or the merchant vessels. In contrast to all other weapon forms, whether it is terrestrial, marine, or airborne, naval mine is a weapon that does not travel to his target, but awaits the target coming onto it, arriving to it. Secondly, it must cause maximum damage with minimum cost and effort. In other words, one second, sorry. In other words, the weapon delivery mechanism is comparatively less expensive and can be more universal than being specific. You can use different types of platforms for delivering this type of weapon. Now I'll go into detail as we come into the construction of the mine. What does the strategy involve? As in all cases of war strategy, mine warfare has two aspects: defensive and offensive. Hence, we have the terms defensive and offensive minefields. Obviously, defensive minefields are laid in our own waters to protect harbors, ports, coastal installations, and marine assets, especially now that we have our offshore fields which are in the open sea, so that they are safe from the enemy seaborne agents. Conversely, offensive minefields would be laid in enemy waters, prevent the enemy from effectively using his harbors, ports, coastal installations, and marine assets. There are two very important terms called naval blockade and naval control of shipping. These are two important strategies in naval warfare. Blockade is an action I can't see there. How can I remove? Okay, I'll just remove the picture. Blockade is an action taken for preventing surface vessels entering and leaving an enemy port. It is an offensive action and is accomplished by warships. This is to cripple enemy war machine and to impact the economy by preventing imports and exports, especially those carrying critical war supplies. On the other hand, naval control of shipping is instituted to regulate movements of seaborne vessels in our own waters. By this, merchant vessels are to follow a designated passage to facilitate inspection and control, as well as to give safe passage to our own marine forces. Countries like India, having a very vast coastline, would require a gigantic fleet of vessels to impose effective naval control of shipping, even of major ports like Mumbai, Goa, Kochi, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Kolkata, and the strategic islands of the Port Blair, in addition to the offshore assets in the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. This, gentlemen, can be compensated by laying defensive minefields and creating special channels and sea lanes of approach. Similarly, for naval blockade also, though it's a good strategy, we require a large number of warships for its implementation. This again can be overcome by laying suitable minefields and reducing the actual blockaded area to be managed by warships. What is the impact of naval mines? One is the fear psychosis. The greatest impact of marine warfare, naval mine warfare, is fear psychosis. This is because the location, contours, depth profile, and the types of mine in an area is known only to the mine laying force. While some information on the area, the type of mines, and offensive minefield can be ascertained by enemy and neutralized using mine countermeasures, creating a safe passage route for its own forces, it is next to impossible to obtain full information of defensive minefields which are laid in our own waters, the details of which are stored in a very highly secretive manner. In comparison to the time frame and material effort required for laying minefield, the time and effort involved in mine countermeasures is estimated to be more than 10 to 15-fold. This is mainly because any surface, subsurface, or airborne platforms can be used for laying mines, but special surface and seaborne vessels and airborne vessels with specialized equipment are required to clear minefields. In order to declare a minefield fully clear and safe for passage, every individual mine has to be recovered or neutralized. Most of the countries do not have sufficient or effective mine countermeasure vessels and may require assistance of foreign navies to undertake this task, which would be prolonged, and hence it can be very prohibitive in cost. Thirdly, it can impact a country's economy. Naval mine warfare impacts not only the war machinery of the adversary by way of loss and damage to the naval forces, but also it can cause loss and damage to his merchant fleet, which in turn can adversely affect the economy of the country, especially those heavily dependent on import like fuel, petroleum products, machinery, etc. So what is the effectiveness of a naval mine warfare? First of all, durability. What do I mean by durability? It is the length of deployment. Minefields can be laid well in advance, and the life of minefield can extend to years, not only weeks and months, but years. It can be even for 100 years. But the duration of effectiveness will depend purely on the detonation system, which again is based on mostly the battery type that we use for triggering the detonator. The shell of the mine is extremely robust and can remain in the sea for a number of years. This means a minefield can be laid well before a conflict commences and can be left in the field for a long time, even after the cessation of conflict, to be cleared on a later stage. I'm sure you've been reading in the media telling us that the mines deployed during Second World War are now being located, found, and destroyed even 75 years after the war is over. Secondly, the aspect of effectiveness is that a single mine can either destroy a large ship or it can incapacitate the vessel, rendering it unusable and unavailable for further combat. And towing such a crippled ship back to the base would involve one or more vessels being withdrawn from the battle zone for a given duration to carry out the task, thereby depleting the force strength. Third, and this is we have always found to be a most important effectiveness. A small minefield with a limited number of mines can be laid, but a larger area can be declared as a minefield, which compels an adversary to keep away from an area and even to deviate from its original route. This has always been used as a ruse. Lay a small field, but declare that a much larger area has been mined, and so they declare a larger area which is restricted for movement for vessels. Once again, as I said earlier, once a vessel is destroyed by a mine, or if the adversary has detected even a single mine in his territory and neutralized, he will be compelled to commit huge resources for further mine countermeasures. So these are the things that which make the mine such a potent weapon. Let's look at some of the mines. These are just pictures. I'll be explaining each one of them. The mines are normally categorized depending on how we deploy them. First, depending on the position where the mines are going to be in the water. So they can therefore be a mine at the bottom or at an intermediate part of the water or even on the surface. So one categorization is surface mines. These are the mines which are right just below the water, which are moved to the ground. Second is subsurface, which will be a little more further deeper. There are floating mines. These are free floating mines which are just dropped and they are carried from place to place by the elements, by the current in the place over there. And there is no control over them because the ocean currents and tidal waves can carry them from one place to the other. We have the ground mines which are being more and more effectively used now. The mines remain at the bottom. They are used majority against submarines, but also against surface forces. And lastly is the limpet mines. These are a new one. These are the mines which saboteurs have to really go onto the target, place them onto the hull of the ship, and blast them with either with a time mechanism or even with remote control mechanism. Again, the mines are classified depending on how they are detonated or actuated or how does it explode when the target is near. So we have two types once again. One is called the contact mine and the second is called the influence mine. A contact mine is nothing but a mine which is floating at a particular depth or closer to the surface. Target passing by has to have physical contact with the mine. With the mechanism of explosion, the mine explodes and the target is destroyed. These are the oldest methods. They are more or less obsolete, but many countries still continue to have their arsenal of contact mines. But what is much more in practice today is
Symbol staining in a challenge symbol stain which provides a color
online.
strain which provides color.
Okay, the second is influence mines. Different fields that influence a mine to explode. One is the magnetic, second is the acoustic, third is pressure, and the fourth we call it remote control. We'll be going into detail of this a little later. I just want to show you some of the pictures. This is a mood mine against the Second World War. I'll come to the construction after this. This is a floating mine on the surface. This is a magnetic mine. This is an acoustic mine. This is a pressure mine. This is a limpet mine. And this is a remote controlled mine. This is a cross section of a mood mine or the old contact mine. You can see some projections over there. They are called the horns. These are the ones initially used. Inside the metallic horn, there is a glass vial containing an electrode, normally like sulfuric acid. So when there's an impact, these metal containers, external horns break, the glass vial breaks inside, and that causes electrolysis. And earlier batteries, of course, are there, the electrolyte batteries, which gave the initial electric pulse which is required. That breaks the fuse, then the detonator, and then the whole mine goes boom. So that is the general. Even for other influence mines, there will not be physical contact, but the influence is once again going to trigger off the detonation mechanism. First the fuse, then the detonator, and then the mine. If you look at it, we have a very robust shell over here. And this normally actually goes to almost 1/3 of the weight of the mine. It's designed to withstand aquatic pressure, depending on the depth of water where the mine is going to be used. Because we know for every 1 meter of water that we go below, there is a pressure equal to 1 atmospheric pressure. The horns, as I said, is external and is part of the contact mine for detonation. There are also hooks for handling the mine and for attaching the mooring mechanism for mood mines. Normally, there are 3 or 4 chambers inside the mine. The first is the largest one, which houses the explosive content. The second contains the mine detonating mechanism. The third, the program or the electronic programming mechanism. And there can also be a chamber for giving buoyancy for the mood mines. For mood mines are also there'll be anchors and the depth setting mechanism. How does the mine explode? You see on the right hand side, the hull of the ship, as I said earlier, as it passes, it breaks up the vial, and then the electrolysis takes place and the electric circuit is complete. If it's a magnetic mine, then the upper part of the antenna could be a positive anode and the bottom could be a negative. So with the explosion of with the influence taking place, a magnetic field is created there, which works out the relay, and then the rest is in common. So between the mood mines and the influence mines, only how is the initial influence taking place, whether direct contact or by one of the 3 influences that we spoke about. I'm sorry, I thought there will be audio here. but it's only showing how a mine explodes. Is there any audio?
No, sir. No audio.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there is audio.
There is?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Audio is good. We are getting nicely.
Okay.
I think you are referring to the audio from the video which is being shown. That is not there.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Audio from the video.
We can hear your narrative.
Thanks.
We can hear your narrative.
But not the video. Video's audio is not. We
Video
cannot
not
hear.
there?
From video,
No.
there has been no audio. It's been silent.
Sorry.
No, silent, but because
We can
there
hear
is
you.
No audio, please.
Okay, I'll read out what comes on the screen. You can. Okay. So this is an actuation of mines, how it takes place. Based on that, you can plan how you're going to protect yourself. One is a target detecting device for a magnetic mine. It triggers the detonation. There are 4 methods, as I've said earlier, just a picture, I think, magnetic, pressure, acoustic, and they talk about seismic here. So the mine, the ship, the target creates a magnetic field, and there are magnetometers which pick up these signals. There are 3 axes so that they can go pick up from any direction that the field is created. And every vessel has its own magnetic signature. When it passes a mine, so the electromagnetic signals are converted into electric signals, and which completes the firing electric circuit. And also then how powerful is the magnetic influence, because it should not be from a small vessel, and it should be waiting for the big vessel to come so that it can be the bigger target that it wants. For the pressure, what is more important is as the ship moves through the water, as the bows go down first, there is a positive pressure. Then toward the center, there's a suction or an upward and negative pressure. And again, at the end, it comes back to a positive. So it is like a sinusoidal one. The mine explodes on the negative pressure, the upward pull that it affects when a vessel or a ship passes over it. So again, I'm repeating, it is a negative pressure, the upward suction, that is tuned for the mine to explode. Acoustic is the sound of the ship passing. A lot of things on board cause. One is the very propeller movement, the machinery on board, the hull noise, even the people shouting, screaming. These all will transmit acoustic signals, which are picked up by vibrators, which are fixed on the mine, and they are able to, with the vibration, complete the circuit and go in for detonation. Seismic is nothing but, even if you can have a big explosion or any higher pressure signal, it could be equivalent to a seismic. Okay, where are the mines going to be deployed? We have again classification. One is known as the surface zone, which is about from 0 to 3 meters. We have the very shallow zone, 3 to 10 meters. Then we have the shallow zone, the 10 to 50 meters, and the deep zone, 15 to 100. Why do we have this classification? It depends on where are the mines being used. For example, if you are having mines which will be used in rivers, in estuaries, in small port entries, sea coasts, etc., for preventing landing operations, you will have the surface zone, because you will be having vessels coming right onto the beach. So you have to have mines within 3 meters. If they're very shallow, it could be for protecting harbors. The harbor and port. Harbor is the whole geographical area. Port is only the facility, the berths and the other facility. But the entire harbor area could be in the depth of water, 3 to 10 meters, So, and in these areas, you can use either ground mines or you can use even moored mines. Then we have the shallow water, which is 10 to 50. Again, it will be further out. Many times here we use mines against submarines. This is the normal operating depth of submarines, 20 to 30 meters, depending on which area it is. And further down, 50 meters and above, we have some submarines which are still going deeper than that. And also maybe in our offshore installations where the depth of water could be much, much more. So this is one classification of where and how the mines can be deployed. One more depiction, picture-wise, on you can have as close to the land. You can have, depending on the continental shelf, how is the slope happening on our coast. So the mine can be of different types. It can be ground, it can be moored mines, there could be contact or influence mines. Let's now come into, once again, of deployment. I spoke in the beginning that there's something called a defensive minefield. These are laid in, I said, in our own waters. And all the countries which deploy mines normally have a detailed program or a detailed plan for a defensive minefield. We are very categorically taught while we were doing our course in Russia that every country has to have a top secret document which will lay out in peacetime, subject to there's going to be a conflict, which are the ports. For example, India has so many major ports. Where all are we going to lay the minefield? And this must be kept ready well in advance, and not when a conflict starts, you start putting your heads down together. For preparing a minefield, therefore, firstly, and that plan is supposed to be kept only in the service headquarters, naval headquarters, and in the command headquarters, and no one has access to it. Only when the conflict is declared, this document is opened or in preparation towards a conflict. So what are the aspects that go into in preparing the document? One is, what is the threat perception? What are we going to defend our ports against? What type of ships can we expect to come into our port? Secondly, what is the geographical area? We have got the Bombay port, for example. Are you going to lay it only at the entrance, or are you going to lay it on the flanks? So how much geographical area that you want to cover? Second, the marine conditions there, especially the depth, the tidal and current condition, type of bottom soil, underwater visibility. When you say depth of water and tidal currents, I hope our naval officers will know me. In Bhavnagar, the change of the range of tide, which means the height from low tide to high tide, is 10 meters, 30 feet. That's why they have all the ship breaking or the alarm. So if you lay a mine at a particular depth, so at low water, your mine will be right on the bottom, and at high water, your mine will not reach the depth that you want it to stay. So it is important to know what is the geographic area, what are the marine conditions, and tidals, etc. While laying mines, it has to go to the exact spot that you want to do. If it's going to be drifting from there, if the soil is very loose, when you put a ground mine, will it go much below the ground? Go maybe a couple of meters low, and its sensors may be covered. Its sensors may not work as required. So very important to know what are the marine conditions over there. Again, I said the extent of minefield. We have to demarcate a minefield very clearly during peacetime. This is where the minefield is going to extend. Thereafter, what is the pattern? It could be the minefields are a different pattern. It could be a straight line. It could be a moon shape. It could be a V shape. It will depend on what is the marine condition, what is the strait, what is the channel like? Is it a broad channel? Is it a very narrow channel? Are there bends in the channel? For example, if I have to take a ship onto Hooghly River, from the mouth of the sea, I have to travel 140 nautical miles. Am I going to lay the whole thing, or am I going to choose where they're going to come? So very important. Then I will choose how much and what is going to be the pattern of the minefield that I want to lay there. And certainly, of course, the pattern will also depend on how much mines do we have. Do we have the number that were used in World War II? Do we have thousands of mines in our own country? A big question mark. Then, what are the mine laying apparatus that we have? Means what type of vessels? I'll go in detail with the apparatus. What are vessels and how are we going to deploy them? What is the monitoring mechanism? It is not that you lay a minefield before the conflict and then forget about it. We have to watch whether the mines have been laid. Any of them have the mooring mines, the contact mine, have they drifted? Have any of them exploded on their own, showing that there is a gap? So once a minefield is laid, you got to keep on monitoring it also constantly. And there are measures to be taken and kept well in advance. So in case there's an accidental explosion, and there's or a displacement of mine from the position due to dragging or breaking, what is the action to be taken in such a contingency? And equally more important, what is our own countermeasures plan once the conflict is over? How are we going to clear our own mines? So if you do not have a complete accurate coordinates of the minefield, how are we going to clear and declare that the whole place has been cleared? So this is the thing major that goes into preparing a mining plan, a defensive mining plan in our own harbors. We'll have to have separate plans for each of the harbor, each of the ports rather, where we want to lay mines. It is a gigantic planning, it's a gigantic expenditure, it's a gigantic forces that is required. Time can also take a lot of time to implement it. So unless the plan is well prepared, you cannot go into just say we're going to have conflict. You cannot say lay a few mines and there it is going to be successful. If we want a successful minefield, it has to be well planned, taking these things into consideration. And if you're going to an offensive minefield, all of the above will come into account. But there are certain constraints over here. Firstly, we will never have we will always have incomplete or absence of precise information on the seabed features of the enemy coastal waters and approaches to the harbors. Maybe our own ports, our hydrography department, they are regularly carrying out a lot of exercise to prepare the charts that we have for us. So we may have very clear information on our own ports, but who is going to give us detailed information of the enemy coast where we have to lay offensive minefield? Secondly, offensive minefield has to be laid in a clandestine manner. You cannot do it in an open way. You are going to be attacked. So you may have to do it with such cover, maybe at night time, maybe using craft which cannot be detected, maybe using unconventional craft, fishing boats, merchant ships, etc. So this is a major constraint for an offensive minefield. Thirdly, the proposed area to be mined could be far away from our own base, and hence the resources to be committed would be, we cannot send all the vessels that we have just for an offensive minefield. So it may not be possible always to lay a large offensive minefield at an enemy coast. Again, for targeting specific ships or a formation, the deployment details of the enemy fleet is to be known. We know that intelligence gathering keeps on going. Indian Navy keeps watching what is the sailing out pattern of the Pakistan fleet when they go for exercise. Vice versa, Pakistan is watching what is our fleet formation, which are the ships they go at, what order do they go, which are the vessels come first, which are the forming the main body, which is at the flank. If we know these information, then the mines can be tuned, as they call, for the specific targets. Nobody wants a fishing boat. Nobody wants just one merchant ship. We want either a capital ship, as they call it, a big ship, as we call it. We know how Ghazi was trying to hunt for Vikram during the 1971 war. So that's where they're so. This information, do we have specific signatures of those ships which are over there? Yes, submarines do carry out sound recording of enemy ships. They record to find out how exactly the propeller noise of one particular major ship, which can be used for preparing the detonation circuit of our mines, especially in the offensive mine. And another aspect about offensive mine will innocent vessels and those from neutral countries could become victims of minefield, for which the party laying the minefield can be held responsible internationally. Again, for offensive mines, as I said, the most suitable is for laying is submarines. However, their mine carrying capacity would be limited and only a small minefield can be laid, because normally we have the submarine tubes forward and aft, If the submarine is going for a water patrol, you cannot carry only mines. You've got to take a combination. Your warheads and the torpedoes in front have to be fully armed. So out of the number of tubes that you have behind, out of the 4 or 6 tubes or 4 tubes, you can only use 1 or 2 tubes for mines. So how many can you fit into that? So that if you want a large minefield, are you going to spare 3 submarines, 4 submarines just for mine laying? So these are the constraints that we have when you're laying an open sea minefield. I spoke about the mining apparatus. Let me just explain what exactly is it. The mining apparatus consists of the types of vessels, machinery, and equipment required to lay an effective minefield. So there could be mine layers. There could be any other craft. As I said earlier, the advantage of mine warfare is that while you have specially designated vessels which are designed to carry out these, you can always use any other craft. Again, as I said earlier, many times fishing boats are used. The merchant vessels which are entering or heading towards your enemy can always be used. I know in the Russian outlook, every merchant vessel can be retrofitted with a mine rail and can be used as a mine layer anytime. Every Russian aircraft, civilian aircraft, has a provision for retrofitting of carrying mines and bombs for dropping. So any other craft can also be used for effective minefield laying. Then there has to be a mine hunting equipment to detect mines. So these are again the apparatus that we use in mine warfare. And lastly, how do we set the parameters of the mines? I spoke about how the mine detonates, what the influence. So we have to set certain parameters so that minefield will be fully effective. One of the most let me go a little more detail. The mine layers, they are the vessels which are going to be used for laying of mines. As they're going specially designed, they have to have certain characteristics. Firstly, there must be a light draft. Draft is the portion below the water line, because they must be able to operate in shallow waters as required, and they must be as light as possible so that they do not create an influence on the mine that they are laying. Secondly, they must have good navigation equipment. I told minefield laying is a very accurate activity. So there must be very clear navigation. Today, of course, the modern Navy and the modern world is very, very lucky. You have all the GPS which will tell you where exactly and you pinpoint. In our days, we had to use sextant, we had to use compass, we had to use the stars. So in our time, precise navigation therefore was a very important aspect. Today, we have plenty of equipment which will give you your exact position that where you want to go. They are not very large. They can be retrofitted on any small craft also. The craft should be able to maneuver, because again, you're going into maybe narrow channels, maybe shallow waters, may be able to know turning place to turn around. So they may be able to maneuver very, very, very carefully and be able to go into the place and come back without much difficulty. They must have a depth recording system. We know we are planning to lay a mine in a particular place. We know what is the expected depth over there. But before laying the mine should have what we call echo sounder or modern variants, where the depth of exactly the spot can be checked before the mine is laid. You don't want to send one small vessel with 2 mines on board. You want to say, if you're sending a vessel out, you should be able to carry a substantial number. So a designated mine layer will have that much deck space, as we call it. On the deck, she can keep store as many mines as it could, so that in one vessel, you can drop a large number of mines. And if the minefield, it may not be one mine layer, there will be a formation, there will be 3, 4, 5 who will be going out together if you want to have an effective minefield lay. There has to be mine handling equipment. There are, once they are loaded, how are they going to be placed from point to point? How are they going to be lifted from the vessel? How are they going to drop down to the side? And how are they going to be released as such? And always there has to be a naval diving team on a mine layer. If a mine malfunctions, maybe a diver has to go down. Maybe they have to neutralize that mine. rarely mines are recovered. So always a mine layer must have a diving team on board. This is one of the pictures of the mine layers which is used in Second World War. It is a merchant ship converted. They only fitted the rails on the side. These are purely moved mines or the contact mines. These did not have any complicated, so they have only a lever system, which on releasing the lever, the mine just rolls overboard. Again, I said, these are things that can be fitted onto any platform. You can take one of those offshore supply vessels, which are supplying items to the rigs. They all can be, we have a number of them operating in our sea. So in a time of conflict, they can be converted. Only you may have to retrofit them with better navigation and other equipment that is required for that. This is again showing in the Second World War. This is because there is a anchor and the mine is nothing but this is a naval vessel, but they do not have to do any much modification except for a rail or a chute, as we call it, mine chute, just to be slipped over the side, and they're able to convert it into a mine layer. There are also airdrop mines, which are like the B-52 bombers, which are used that once again at the belly and a release mechanism, they go right into the water. So they are much safer. You do not touch the surface of the water. Let's talk about mine sweeping equipment. Again, once I said, what are the lifting machinery that we have on board? They are called davits or the cranes, which can lift. And by the way, mines can weigh anything from 700 kilograms to 2 tons. That's the various mines that we have studied that could be used. So you must have that much lifting capacity on these small craft. A large ship like a merchant ship can have a very, very heavy crane. But if you want to fit a crane or a davit on a small ship, that will be taken into consideration when the construction takes place. Then I said the mine trolleys. These are the places where the mines are kept, and then they are brought onto the mine rails and rolled over the side. And again, I said there has to be a release mechanism so that you can release one mine at a time. But when you're doing a pattern, there will be a distance between 2 mines. So each time when the ship is moving on that distance, you can release each mine, forming the mine pattern. And again, for the contact mine, there has to be an anchor which will keep it firm on the bottom, but the mine has to be at a particular height. So there will be a depth setting. Basically, a hydrostatic switch is used depending on the pressure of the water. Even the mine goes to the bottom, the hydrostatic releases, and then the length of cable that you have marked and kept, that will bring the mine to the height that you require. And there are specific tools required for setting the parameters. I will come a little more detail onto the parameters now. Now, what are mine parameters? Firstly, as I said just now, we have to lay the mine at a particular depth. Why? Because every ship has what we call the draft, the portion below the surface. So if a Vikrant can have, or a Virat can have a draft of almost 20 meters, why should I lay a mine at 10 meters? I'll put it a little more low. But if I'm putting it against a smaller craft, I want to target a minesweeper. His draft is only 2 to 3 meters. So the depth where the mine is going to be for moved mines has to be sent. That is a depth setting mechanism, as I said earlier, which is incorporated in every mine. Then you have a timer. As I said earlier, we can lay the mines in advance, but I don't want the mines to be active for the day I lay. I can time the mine to be active maybe after 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. This is a time mechanism which could be set. And today, with modern quartz technology, setting a time is not a major issue. Whereas olden days, you had to have specific batteries which could last for that long. And also there has to be safety mechanism fit into it, which only after a certain elapse of time will the mine circuit be completed. A very important thing earlier and even continue to be used is known as the ship count. This is where a mine will explode, mostly the influence mine, only after a certain number of actuations. So if there's a target ship going over, the mine is actuated, been armed once, it will not explode. It could be second. So as a mine laying, when I'm laying the mine, I can set what is the ship count to be done. Ship count can be from 1 to 100 or even more. Why do I require a ship count? As I said earlier, I am watching what is the Pakistan fleet doing, what is their formation going. Okay, if they are taking, for example, my carrier group is going out. Virat is the main body. It has got 3 of the guided missile cruisers just in front of it, has anti-submarine, anti-aircraft, and maybe minesweeper leading on. I don't want the minesweeper. I want the Virat, which is always in the normal formation on the 5th ship, for example. So I will set the counter at the 5th ship. After each activation, the counter moves once. And each time, only when the set counter comes onto it, that the mine will explode. So these are techniques which are there. Also, we call them the anti-sweeping. So a minesweeper sweeps once, so nothing happens to the mine. But more it is for choosing a particular target. Along with the ship count, there will always be the intensity of the minefield. If larger ship will have a larger field, smaller ship will have smaller field. So even the intensity of both the magnetic as well as acoustic as well as pressure can be set on the detonating mechanism. So we must have the tools for setting them before laying the mines. This will be in my major plan, which I said the top secret plan. We are going to lay mines again because the intelligence says these are the ships operating from the Western Naval Command. These are the ships operating from the Western Fleet, rather, from the Eastern Fleet. These are the ships based at Port Blair. These are ships in Calcutta. And how are they going to come out in case of a war, in case of coming in a formation? So then I can say, or the minefield will be fully active only after a certain number of counters that have been carried out, and the mine will be fully ready for detonation and explosion. There are certain general types of mines which have been, these are terminology more. What is a bouquet mine? Bouquet mine is nothing but a number of mines, moored mines, will be anchored to one anchor. The advantage is that big or small vessels will be able to be detonated by contact on any one of them, and it saves me a number of anchors for laying down. These are called a bouquet mine. We call anti-sweep mines. I said earlier again, in certain mines, along with the mooring cable, they keep very small explosives, which when it be trying to be swept by the minesweeper, it will break the minesweeping wire and the mine will not explode. Third could be oscillating mines. These are hydrostatically controlled mines to maintain a particular depth below the water surface and independently of the rise and fall of tide. Because that hydrostatic switch is there, that will maintain flow. If there's a high tide, the mine will come further up. If there's a low tide, the mine will go lower. So these are all older types, because we do not have the complete information of the ships which are coming. Ascending mines. These are mines laid in a particular area with a certain mechanism. When a target approaches, the mine can come onto it is released from the ground, it is released from the anchor, and it can reach the surface as required. This will all depend not by time, here will be depend on the number of activation that goes on. Homing mines. These are mines, as I said earlier, expect the target to come to you, but these are nothing but mines once again, which have been laid, but on picking up a target, they are able to be released and home onto the target because they have certain homing devices that have been incorporated on the mine. We don't call it a warhead, we call it a mine head. There's always a homing device can be fitted onto that. You can have rocket mines. This is again nothing but a small mechanism which can, from a ground mine, it can be fired to bring it to the target area that you want the mine to reach. Next is a torpedo mine. Once again, these are mines normally laid by submarines which are attached to a torpedo. So on reaching an area, the mine is deployed there and the torpedo can go to any other direction that he wants. So this is only in an emergency. You're not going to waste your torpedo just for laying a mine. This is a type of mine which was there earlier. We also have mobile mines. Not the modern mobile telephone, certainly. It is nothing but a self-propelled variety. It'll have a very small propelling mechanism so that if you want to lay a mine to an entrance to the port, you don't have to enter. You can remain outside. You can launch the mine, and the mine, just like a saboteur going, like a small self-propelled craft going, the mine can go to, at the end of the time, mine sinks and remains at the place that you want it to go. You have nuclear mines, which I would say is more of a threat. It's nothing but, instead of normal explosive, you can have nuclear explosive. But as per a world convention, many of the navies have kept it more as a potent weapon and have not come across anywhere where these have been used or these are being proposed to be used. One is called a daisy chain mine. These are two mines are laid in as mooring mines, and one cable is connecting both these mines. So when a target ship goes through the center and this chain is pulled, the two mines from the side come on to the target and explode. We have the parachute mines, which are the laid from the air, so that the impact should not be so much. So they have a small parachute which opens up, and the mines lands softly onto the surface of the water. And lastly, we have the dummy mines. What are these now? As I said earlier, the mine threat is so much that even by laying a few mines, you are able to create a big minefield. So there are also, these are used nothing but plastic drums or metal drums, which are filled with sand and concrete. And they are periodically rolled over, and they also can be put to the anchoring mechanism. So a mine detecting sonar can detect this, and it can be confused for a mine. So these will be making the mine sweeping a little more difficult asset. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I have basically gone through the very general aspect of mine warfare. As I see, if you want to read the deployment of minefield during the last 1, 2, 3 wars, there are vast information available. But I've gone more into a little more technicality, so when you read them, you'll be able to understand. So these are the first part I have covered under the mines, and I like to go back to go to the second part of mine, which is the countermeasures. For every mine that you lay down, you have to have a countermeasure. And as I said in the presentation, this is a more difficult or a task than mere mine laying. First of all, what is a mine countermeasure? What is the definition? Mine countermeasures are actions, activities, and procedures implemented to avoid damage to seaborne vessels arising out of sea mines, and to provide a safe passage for vessels in or along a water body, in a particular area, or even in a body. So what are the mine countermeasures? There are two types in everything, as we said, offensive mining, defensive mining. Therefore, this has to be passive mine countermeasures and active mine countermeasures. The first one is passive. These are measures taken normally by naval vessels to reduce the possibility of mines being triggered by the vessel's characteristics, mostly against mines. So, if a vessel going through an area, how can you reduce the signature, the magnetic, acoustic, or pressure signature of that vessel, so that it does not give the intensity to which the mine has been laid? So if it's a so if it is a magnetic mine, then you have to reduce the magnetic signature of the vessel. So these are achieved by various measures. One is the very construction. What type of material that you use? What is the equipment that you're going to load on? For example, to reduce ship magnetic signature, the special steel can be used. The US Navy uses 3 types of steel for shipbuilding. One is the mild steel, which is used for bulkhead. Bulkhead are called the walls of the ships. A mixture of mild steel and high tensile steel for the hull, and a special treated steel for the armor plating. All the ships have below the keel, they have their armor plating. A steel hull ship can be degaussed. You can reduce the strength of the field by specially fitted coils on board with high electricity. So they are able to either reduce the strength of the field, or even partly neutralizing them using magnetic inductors. And so, so you are trying to avoid when you say passive, you are not trying to attack the mine. You are trying to keep away from it. So you want to either locate it or you are trying to keep away from the mine. That is the basic passive activity that we are taking. In case of acoustic mines, there will be the machinery which is used will be of low vibration. They will be well mounted so that there will be no further vibration cost. There are specially designed propellers to reduce the cavitation. Cavitation, nothing but when the propellers are turning, it is like digging water, and that creates a specific sound. Every ship and every submarine has a cavitation signature, which, if known, can be set onto the mine. All loose gear is to be secured to prevent their movement while the ship is at sea, so that they do not contribute to the acoustic sound. They also say, have a silent ship. Could you imagine 100 people talking together, singing songs on board? Even that can lead to an acoustic influence which can detonate a mine. Very little passive measure there against pressure mine, except maybe the design, the construction, because the pressure signature will always be there. It is nothing when the vessel is moving, the downward pressure, the negative pressure, and the positive pressure. So whereas these are all fitted into the mine countermeasure vessels, they take into consideration all these aspects because they have to go into the minefield first when the countermeasures are required. So that's why we have the small size of the minesweepers. They have maybe wooden hull, or even they can have fiberglass hulls. They all have degaussing equipment on board to reduce the magnetic signature. And they have special propellers with special guards so that the cavitation can be reduced. So these are the passive measures that we use. And active measures, actions taken to clear a path for vessels to transit through a minefield or to remove it completely. Why I say clear a path? During hostilities, you may not have the time to clear all the minefields. And again, I said earlier, minefields can be cleared much later after the hostilities are over. So you may require only a small channel to be cleared. Suppose the enemy has laid an offensive minefield against us in Mumbai. We want our vessels to go out, so you can create a channel for that time being only. So that will include active countermeasures. And what are the aspects that we take into consideration for an active mine control? Firstly, again, as I said, for mining, we have to require mapping and demarcating of the minefield. It's our own minefield. I know where it is, but if the enemy has laid an offensive minefield in front of me, in entrance to my port, I do not know. So it will be left to me how well and how far I'm going to demarcate this minefield. Second is we have to detect the mines. I can use mine hunters, I can use sonars, I can use equipment to detect. Once I detect the mine, I can mark the location. Mine sweeping then becomes easier. Third, use of appropriate countermeasure. Depends on what is a contact mine, is an influence mine, is what we call a combined mine. A mine might have magnetic, acoustic, pressure, all signatures fed into it. So what type of countermeasure am I going to use depending on my intelligence? And lastly, having located the mine, having demarcated the minefield, how am I going to neutralize it, or how am I going to dispose it? So that is very, 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 very important. How am I going to do it? What are the types of mine countermeasures? First is what we call the mine sweeping. This is a very, very generic term that we use for ships for actually clearing or sweeping and making that sea area very completely clear of entire mines over there. So this is radio method, and I'll be coming to that. The second is called the mine hunting, as I said earlier. Again, there are specific designated vessels which will be carrying out mine hunting. Third will be mine running. I'll explain. And last will be the remote controlling of mines which have already been laid either by us, or if you are able to use any other method for detonating that mine. Now, mine sweepers are specific vessels which have been having the equipment for clearing all different types of mines. What are their characteristics? First of all, for a contact mine, they would have a mechanical sweep. This is nothing but a long, very specially created serrated wire, 2 to 300 meters long, or maybe even 400 meters, which is streamed astern of the mine, along with certain cutters. There could be either mechanical cutters or explosive cutters. The mine and the mine sweeping wire is streamed astern of the ship, and there are equipment which can not keep it directly astern. It can divert the mine wire to one side using what I hope to see on the right, so top to come. First of all, there's a float on the right corner that is showing the end of your sweep. You know, that is the part where your last part of the mine sweeping wire is there, and the connecting rope is called a float. Then you have an otter. Otter is nothing but with a hydrophone which can divert the wire, pushing it onto a side. When the water pressure is there, this equipment just goes onto the side, so your mine sweeping wire is going almost 100 to 200 meters onto one plank, which means if you're clearing that area and you're able to detect the mines, or you're able to cut the mines, then that 200 feet are clear from you. And so there can be a number of cutters over there, intermediate cutters, and there are the depressors which will take the sweep to a certain depth. I must sweep at least 20 meters if I'm expecting mines at 10 meters. And so this is where a mechanical sweep is a cumbersome thing. It has a lot of floats so that it can be kept in place, and it is at the moment it is manually paid out along with the winch which is on board. So this is a mechanical sweep, and it could be done by a single ship which can put that wires on both sides. So if you get 100 meters clearance on one side and the 100 meter side, you're getting a passage of 200 meters. Or you can even have a double sweep where two ships can combine their sweeps, and which means it can be a single sweep. In a single sweep, you can clear even a larger area. All our minesweepers in the Indian Navy, which unfortunately are not there, all of them have these sweeps on board. And then also they can be swept. The minesweepers, smaller ones, they lay the sweep, and then a helicopter hovers, and the sweep is picked up by the helicopter, which can then drag the sweep along and carry out the surface sweep that is doing. And at the completion, once again, it is handed over back to the surface vessel, which retrieves the sweep which has been laid out. These are the magnetic sweeps. These are heavy cables, very, very heavy cables, which have very high current. There's a special high magnetic mine sweeping generator on all the minesweepers, and they are once again streamed astern of the ship, well astern, 200 to 300 meters. They have floats. They have the high current passing through. They have the indicators where the end of the sweep is. So these will create a huge magnetic. The ship is very small, but using these heavy cables, we are able to create a very, very, very strong magnetic field. So magnetic mines which are there can be neutral, can be exploded using these mines. But again, I said you'll never have these days a single influence. You may have 2 or 3. So these ships also do have the acoustic sweep. These are once again noisemakers. They have a rotor which is lowered, and it's a very high frequency which can create the propeller sounds of even much, much larger ships. And also, as I said earlier, for pressure mines, there's nothing much these minesweepers can do. I'll come to how we handle the pressure mines later. And I just want to show you, as I mentioned earlier, this is a naval task group going on. You can see an aircraft carrier right in the center. You got 4 ships in front. We got ships maybe astern. In the different part, normally the fleet tanker will be behind over there. So if I know this is the pattern which of a particular fleet or a particular flotilla is going out, I can pattern my ship to explode on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th attack. This is only to show you how and why we have the ship counter mechanism which is over there. I've told you about mine countermeasures. I just want to show you, this is one of our Indian Navy mine countermeasure vessels. This is the ship INS Alappi, which I had the privilege of commissioning in Riga and USSR on the 10th of June 1980. In that time, this had all the modern minesweeping equipment required. We had the magnetic sweep, we had the single contact sweep, the double contact sweep. Also, we had armament on board. There are two 30 mm turrets, twin gun turrets. So we had 4 guns on either side and a 25 mm gun also on board. Those I'll tell you why when we come to mine disposal. So we had a number of classes like, so Indian Navy, unfortunately, I'm being very open, all of these have been decommissioned. I'm coming a little later at the time. This is the second we call the inshore. That was the ocean mines. This is an inshore for using them only in the in a much narrow part. These ships are based in Cochin. They are the Mahe class ships, and they are much smaller. They have only mechanical sweep on board. They can also be used for mine hunting because they got a very powerful sonar as well as a very powerful camera, underwater camera, which can be made use of. These are airborne mine clearance. The aircraft itself can hover as low to the water as possible, and you can see the huge equipment around which is used for creating a huge magnetic field. So even without touching the surface, there have been the Second World War, they did use aircraft for creating a magnetic minefield in waters where the aircraft can safely operate. What is the mine hunting? Mine hunting is just like a hunter, you go in search of a mine. And these are, again, I've said, mine hunting is another countermeasure, which is carried out to locate and identify mines. They are then classified and the contact information is stored for possible clearance operations at a later time. When mines are discovered, the locations are to be very carefully plotted by the, and to allow naval forces. Why do we plot them? As I said earlier, either they can have a safe transit by avoiding the mines, or they can get a mine clearance vessel to lead them out of the port as required. And these mine hunters may or may not dispose the mines. It will depend on what is the tactical situation, but their main role is to locate the mines. And they are specifically designed craft. That means that they are, again, small in size, preferably of fiberglass hull, good navigation equipment, and it is fitted with very high definition sonars, both hull mounted, which means it is fixed, or you can have sonars which is on the side. They have side scanners, so you can have a much better clear picture of the possible mines which are there on the floor, on the ground, or on the surface, or underwater. Mine layers, again, as I said, may also neutralize individual mines using semi-submersible and remote operated vehicles or expendable mine neutralization vehicles such as a seafox. Next, we come to the method called mine running. It's a very old method. It is, I don't think it will be used now. This is once you know there are mines laid there, either you don't have the time or you have an urgency, you just run a dummy vessel over to explore the mines. I told you earlier in the American war, they did deploy a minefield, and because port was closed, there were a lot of merchant ships which were bottled up inside the port. So they decided to use some of those merchant vessels, fill them up with just wooden cargo, run the vessel ahead, let it explode, no problem. If the mine is exploded, you got a narrow passage where the other ships can follow. And these are called as block breakers. So I don't think they are being used anymore. It is only an old method, but I will not rule it out. Maybe it will be kept open for a time as required. This can be used for a pressure mine where a small craft can go at high speed and create the influence required. Even when the mine explodes, the vessel would have cleared because of its high speed. So these techniques can be used only on high-speed vessels. And lastly, we come to the mine. How do we dispose of mine? Normally, once a mine is detected, a mine is swept, it is on the surface, the mines are destroyed. Very rarely are they taken back. Maybe they come back only for any intelligence purpose, or maybe as souvenirs. So if you have an offensive mine laid by our adversary, and we are able to sweep a mine, I'm sure we will certainly like to take that mine to disbanding. And it is not an easy task because we do not know what the settings have been on them. Just like an on the land bomb disposal does it, there are special mine disposal squads which go to deactivate the detonating system. Normally, they do it in 1 or 2 persons are at the mine. They're always in contact with a faraway team. Every dismantling they do, they inform the other, which is record. So in case the mine explodes, you can send a second team. So this is as I said, only carried out unless we want the mine to be used, or if we know that our mines have failed. 2-3 mines continuously have been failed. We want to analyze what went wrong. Then only the mines are recovered. In the normal case, after mine sweeping operation, mines are normally not recovered. This is what has been done in most of the previous wars that you have seen. And that's why, as I said earlier, there are mines still floating up and coming up to surface at certain points of time. Where are we in the Indian Navy today? Let me make a very profound statement. We at the moment do not have any reliable mine countermeasure vessels. Why? Because we had acquired 12 vessels in the year 1978 to 1988. These were the Pondicherry class vessels which were acquired from the Russian Navy. First, the 6 of them came, Pondicherry, the Porbandar. So that's why the first ship in the group is called the class ship. So it's a Pondicherry class. Second half, we had the Karwar class, Karwar, Kannanur, Kadalur, Kakinada, and Kozhikode. The second class got some more modification than the previous one. When India got freedom and the Indian Navy separated from the Royal Navy, all that we got was 4 coastal minesweepers, which are a wooden hull, and 4 inshore minesweepers, once again a wooden hull. The ships were Kannanur, Kadalur, Karwar, Kakinada, and the inshore minesweepers were Bhatkal, Basin, Balsar, and Bimlipatnam. So all these 12 minesweepers of the Indian Navy have been decommissioned. The last ship was decommissioned in Kozhikode in 2019. So we do not have any more. I think there has been a delay in acquisition. I'll come to it as we're coming to. We have the inshore minesweepers, or the ISM they call it. These are the Mahe class, Mahe, Malwan, Mangrol, Malpe, Mulki, Magdala, and Magdala. These again, sorry to say, gentlemen, we have only 1 ship left now. 5 have been decommissioned. Here I would say, we found that these are all ships having particular names. All the mine-sweeping vessels are named after ports. The coastal minesweepers have an intermediate port. That's why we had Ratnagiri, Alapi, Bedi, Bhavnagar, Karwar. Inshore minesweepers have a still very minor port, which are all these are on the west coast, Mahe, Malvan, etc. By the way, we have our anti-submarine ships will always be a weapon. We had a Kukri, Kutar, Salwar class. We had the anti-submarines, anti-aircraft were named after rivers, Bias, Betua, Brahmaputra, etc. So our situation today that, we technically do not have any minesweeping capability. Just a comparison, Indian Navy, rather Indian government is now negotiating with Russia for a minesweeper called Alexandrite, and also certain for some mine hunters from the US Navy. So yes, in comparison to what we have, the Pondicherry class and the Karwar class are ocean minesweepers. The Mahe class is inshore. Once again, the Alexander is the ocean minesweeper, and also the mine hunter. The dead weight is the overall the water displacement of a vessel. That tells you what is the size of the vessel technically. So Pondicherry is 890 tons. Mahe is only 100 tons. Could you imagine Vikrant is 60,000 tons? So just imagine what the size is. Alexander will be the same size as Pondicherry class, 890 tons, and the Osprey minesweeper will be 895 tons. The Pondicherry class 61 meter length, Mahe 26, 61, 67. Beam is the width of the ship. Pondicherry and Alexander 10.2, Mahe 5.5, and Osprey. Because the mine hunter, they have equipment on board. They have a broader beam, which is 11 meters draft. They have to operate in shallow waters, so they have only 2.7 meters to 1.5 meters. Also, we have the speeds. Pondicherry class are really have good speed. This will be only maximum speed, but the operating speed is normally 12 knots. So Mahe, max speed 12 knots, operating speed 9 knots. Alexandrite also 16.5, 12 to 13. And Osprey will be, have to go slow for mine hunting. So it's maximum 12, operates at 7 to 9. The mine countermeasures, the Pondicherry class had a sonar, which is known as the MG69. It's a mine hunting sonar. It can detect up to 1,000 meters of a moved mine. The ground mine will be not more than 600 to 700 meters. Mahe still had a sonar, which is MG7, a little more lesser capability than the MG69. The Osprey has an ANSQQ. This is a down-looking sonar, which can always see the ground and much better than the other sonars. The acoustic, the contact sweep on the Pondicherry class is called GK2. The other information is not available to me. Acoustic is AT2, and the armament on board, as I said earlier, 30 mm double barrel 2 turrets. Mahe has got 25 mm one, and Alexander got 6 barrel 30 mm gun. Arbeu is the anti-submarine rocket that these minesweepers are. They're not really against anti-submarine, but when you want to destroy a mine, you can also fire this rocket, which is they're fitted on the forward part of the minesweepers. They have 5 barrels. The Carver class has a SAM-6 on board, and Alexander put a SAM Igla, and Osprey will have a Stinger missile on board. The Pondicherry can operate 4,000 miles. It is operating. It means it can remain and travel up to 4,000 miles with the equipment on board. Mahe is only 300. Alexander is only 1,500. And Osprey can operate 15 days at sea. Just of interest, how do other countries have minesweeping capability? I've just compiled the number of minesweeping vessels. It could be mine hunters, minesweepers, mine layers. Russia has a maximum 48, Egypt 31, China 29, Poland and Japan 25 each, North Korea 23, Bulgaria and Finland 18, France 17, UK only 13, Denmark and Germany only 12, Turkey and South Korea and US 11 each, Italy and Indonesia 10, and Nicaragua 12, Sweden 9, Netherlands, Tunisia, Spain, Australia 6 each, Serbia, Thailand, Latvia, Brazil, Romania, Bangladesh 6 each, Greece and Malaysia 4, Lithuania, India, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia 3 each, and Pakistan, Estonia 3 each, Myanmar, Angola, Nigeria, Kazakhstan 2, Ukraine 1. There are only total 509 vessels as of April 2019 reported in the public domain. We would not know how many more have not been declared, but this is what is available on the public domain. Just before I close, let me say a few words on the international laws on this on sea mine warfare. After the 1904-05 Russian-Japanese war, so many innocent vessels were destroyed. So the forces came together and said there must be some sort of a rule regulation for using of mines, especially in neutral waters. So they came up in 1907 with a treaty, which was formed in Hague, on the laying of automatic and submarine, especially submarine mines. The idea was you can lay only in the areas given to you, and you are not to lay mines, especially during peacetime. This has been created in 1907. You could imagine it's 103 years old. So how much is it effective today? I'm not in a position to comment. However, from after the Second World War, from 1958 onward, there have been convents of the laws of the sea called UNCLOS 1. Then again, they had it in 1973. They had the second one, and the third one, most important, had in 1982. This is where it has been very comprehensively discussed, and certain amounts of rules and regulations were formatted onto this. And whatever rules, they were ratified by 60 countries as required by the UN, and they have come into force. So these are the rules available today. The rules stipulate that there should be no more floating or drifting mines laid. These are being prohibited now because innocent shipping will be victims of floating mine because they can float from one country to other, and it can be causing damage as somebody who has got nothing to do with what's going on. Again, temporary minefield must be cleared soon after the need is over. That is a rule laid down for international. In peacetime, no laying of minefields in territorial water of other nations. You cannot go and lay and say, I am going to suspect, let's say Iran is going to help Pakistan. I cannot go and lay mines against him because he, at this point of time, is not party to the war. Then there is something called a NOTAM, or a notice to mariners. Once a minefield is laid, it has to be publicized in the international fora, and this is done through known as a notice issued to all the mariners that even if you are carrying out an exercise minefield, you are supposed to notify the world saying that this area has been demarked with clear coordinates, and every ship is cautioned not to come within a distance of that minefield. Just like whenever we carry out a practice missile shooting, there's always ships are placed and the entire place is secured, and merchants are told not to enter that area. Similarly, for mines, we have to indicate to the whole world that this we're talking about peacetime. And also, all the minefields to be cleared as soon as the conflict is over. The thumb rule, the one who lays the mine, in case of defense mine, you have to clear it. That's the thumb rule for general mine sweeping. Again, neutral countries cannot carry out mine sweeping operations in the territorial water of another country. I cannot go and carry out unless that country wants me to do. On my own, I cannot do it. This is what we have seen. Even the American and British and French forces have done huge mine clearance in the Gulf War, so they had to have the permission of the local countries before entering to them. And any dispute regarding laying of mines, explosions, will have to be referred to an international tribunal called the Tribunal of the Law of the Seas. These are all governed by the IMO, International Maritime Organization. So there is our rules and regulations in place, but they always say everything is fair in love and war. So how many will be carried out, and how can anybody be prosecuted will have to be seen in case there's a conflict. In conclusion, I just want to say a few more things that's over here. In many towns in minefield, it is tragically the civilians paid a very high price for unrestricted issue, and that is why we did bring about all these rules over here. In the present century, defense forces world over have developed sophisticated and accurate armament, giving them a capacity of over-the-horizon warfare. With long-range and remote control armament, opposing forces can wage wars even without direct confrontation. Modern surveillance systems can give accurate information on adversaries' base facilities, troop and fleet movements, deployment of forces, etc. However, every defense expert will vouch that conventional warfare will continue to be an integral part of modern warfare. In the same way, mine warfare, though has taken a back seat, cannot be deleted from the war books, especially in a marine environment. Mine warfare remains the most cost-effective of naval warfare. Mines are comparatively cheap, and being small, allow them to be easily deployed. With some kinds of mines, barges and rafts will suffice. At present, there are more than 300 different types of mines available. Some 50 countries currently have mining ability. The number of naval mine producing countries has increased 75-fold since 1988. It is also noted that these mines are of an increasing sophistication, while even older mines present a significant problem. Mining busy shipping straits and mining harbors remain some of the most serious threats. For many small countries, mine warfare will continue to be a potent weapon against stronger adversaries. Nuclear mines having been developed, I would say would continue to be, as I said earlier, a potent threat and will not be spread, will not be used in a widespread deployment. Aerial drop mines and remote control countermeasures are gaining more importance. Technology is constantly galloping ahead. Mining technology and countermeasures is a cat and mouse game. A new type of mines emerge, and there will be a parallel development of countermeasures. This, my dear gentlemen, is my presentation. I had a few things, but unfortunately, I don't know on the audio, so I will rather skip them. And thank you. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, I have a question, Hector.
Yep.
Now, what is the peculiarity in the design of Minesweeper that that it itself doesn't become a victim?
Okay. Firstly, it is a very small craft. Very as much as I told you, it is only 800. The Minesweeper that I command only 890 tons. Could you imagine that is as good as a small barge. So therefore, it's giving us first of all a small pressure signature. Second, the Indian minesweepers are made of a special steel called U3 steel. So the magnetic field will be a very small one. They have degaussing cables on board. So basically, it is only the design and the equipment which is on board. Give as small a target as possible. Earlier, I said we had wooden hull, but now they are going into fiberglass hulls. So there will not be magnetic signatures produced by the minesweepers.
Thank you. Any other questions? I mean, please. You already.
Sir, Commander Unnitan from Bombay.
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Sir, the biggest damage to the minefield for the merchant ships after the Second World War was about 30,000 tons, which was damaged in Bangladesh during 71 war by the Mukti Bahini, which should have been told, because that is one of the biggest operation ever undertaken by any country after the Second World War. That is number one. Number two, there are pop-up buoys available on the influence mines nowadays. There is no need for actually sweeping. You can have an electronic signal by which a buoy will come up from the influence mine, and it can be located and then it can be taken. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. And in 1987, SS Bridgetown, as good as 87, was mined in the Iran-Iraq war, SS Bridgetown. And on 14th April, USS Samuel B. Roberts. These are the recent explosion due to mines.
Very interesting, sir.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I mean, please.
Very interesting presentation, especially in this subject. Thank you very much, Commander Poppen. Bye.
Thank you. I think Shankararan.
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
You said about one Limpet mine. Can you throw some light on that? Limpet.
It's called a Limpet Mine. It is nothing but we have special saboteurs who go, like an old U-boat, we have got special submersible boat where two divers can go into that boat and carry, it's a very small mine, and it can have two types of detonation. One, it could be a timer detonation. So they have to actually enter into the enemy waters. Go normally maybe at night. Some of them use a float some on them, and if you got the weeds over there, go submerge underneath. Go right into the port where the ships are berthed, or nowadays very few ships are at naval ships are at anchorage. Earlier ships would be remaining at anchor. So you go up to the ship, go paste it, and you put it onto the hull of the ship, and then either with a timer mechanism, or you can have a remote control mechanism. You are blasting the ship directly. It is nothing but a saboteur's job. It's a diver's job. So it is a very small mine. So even if that ship has got a small hole, if she's going to 2-3 compartments are flooded, she cannot be repaired and brought back maybe for a month or so. So that vessel is going to be out of danger. Secondly, if you can do it on a ship which is waiting to enter the port, sometimes the channel gets blocked. Now, if you can block a channel, you don't have to do anything else. The entire ships coming and going are going to be blocked. So limpet mines are nothing but small mines which you go and I think only James Bond used it earlier.
Thank you.
Sir, exactly that was what the limpet mines were used extensively by the Mukti Bahini. Yes, in damaging the ships, Pakistani ships which are discharging in Khulna and other ports of Bangladesh. They were actually limpet
some mines were laid in Bangladesh. Indian minesweepers went there from January 72 onwards. They clear. So that's the only minesweeping operation that Indian Navy had done, because in all the wars, in 71 war, the major warships went down and did their thing, but the minesweepers were on patrol. And after the war, they were sent to Bangladesh to clear the, and even the Chittagong port was mined and blockaded, which were cleared. And so I had to choose what all I can present in 1 hour. No, so that's, I picked and chose. I thought of giving a general listing rather than going to specific words.
Yeah.
Commander Poppen mentioned about counting the ships.
Yep.
It's not only because of targeting who is the first, second, third ship. It is also it's an anti-mine countermeasure tool, because you can sweep up and down and say this is clear, but every time you trigger the mine, it's counting, because it said I'll do it only on the 72nd activation. So you can sweep 65 times and the mine is still, an influence mine is still waiting there.
I did mention this. I did mention in minesweeping.
Yep. And all these minesweepers, you have these magnetic and acoustic and not so much pressure.
Yeah.
You have to keep fiddling with the waveforms, because you don't know what exactly the frequency for acoustic is. You don't know what the waveform, the pulse length, and that is going to trigger the magnetic mine. So it's a cat and mouse game. Unless you have good information about what the enemy is using, it's very difficult to identify what settings to use to trigger a mine.
No, unless the mine is set for a particular signature, normally it will be what is the minefield created there by a big ship. So the minesweeper with the magnetic sweep is going to create that powerful sweep. So that will be replicating a big ship, and that is why I think, as we said, as the modern days, it is much more complicated because they're all combined. There's not one influence. There will be magnetic, there will be acoustic, there will be pressure. So as we said, but at the end of it, this conventional system will continue, because if moved mines are laid, contact sweep has to be done by minesweepers. And many countries still have their old arsenal. A lot of old mines are still in the arsenal unused, so they will be used in case of a conflict.
Any more questions?
What is the cost of a mine?
Pardon?
What is the cost of one mine approximately?
A mine can be from 3 lakhs to 25 lakhs.
Are we producing mines in our own country?
No.
They're all imported.
Till 1990, I am saying no. I have not got, because it is not on the public domain. I will not be able to answer that. But to the best of my knowledge, no.
I think
it is being made by Ordnance Factory in Calcutta, which is in public domain. The limpet mines, especially, they are manufactured in Calcutta Ordnance Factory, and that is on public domain.
No, that's only limpet mine. I'm talking about the marine mine, the sea mines.
Yeah, the influence mines and all that. Yeah, they are all, generally they are imported.
Yes.
Yeah, Calcutta is the main office. Must be other place, ammunition factory, Karki, like that.
Are these minefields detectable by satellites?
Not likely, because it depends. Because how deep it is, how much below can the satellites go? The searching.
I mean, the technology is not yet
as a mine warfare, I would say no. It can detect the minesweeper. It can detect the floating mines maybe, because they have got sensitivity of 1 meter and 2 meters. So if the mine is floating, yes, but the ground mines, no.
Sir, like satellite today can't detect a submarine underwater. Same way, satellite can't pick up mines which is inside the waters.
No, see, not about that. The submarine is giving a very big profile. Comparing to submarine, which is something like 100 meters, you're talking about a 1 meter diameter mine. Or if it's a ground mine, it could be 3 meters long. And that ground mine is already embedded into the mud. So to pick up that thing from there, it is even sonar, the ship sonar find difficulty in picking up a mine which is embedded. If it's of course a floating mine, absolutely no problem, but a ground mine, even a powerful sonar. That's why they have got a smaller ship, even with the underwater cameras, which is a combination of both to locate those mines.
Sir, should we focus more on NCW vessels or in mines as per requirement?
You're talking about mine laying or mine countermeasure? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir. Both.
You require both, because again, I said we only talked in terms of minefield, but there are times the minesweepers may have to lead a fleet out because you do not know that any mines are over there. That is why the motto of the minesweeping squadron is, we have been there where you want to go. So they go ahead, they clear the path. So minesweepers will continue to be there. Again, there might be mines laid in our offshore oil field. What are you going to do about that? You will have to require mine clearance vessel for that. So this is a requirement, as I said earlier. It may be conventional, but this will continue to be so. But more of remote control equipment is being used now for locating and disposal of the mines. I had 2 videos. Unfortunately, I did not know the audio was not there. I showed you very clearly how remote thing I used and how 46 ships were used in clearing the Suez Canal, where 19 ships were damaged. 46 ships worked for 6 months to clear Suez Canal.
So Anna dear, first of all, thank you so much. Very useful information. A lot of scientific stuff made very simple for us to understand. 2 questions. So can the characteristics of acoustic, magnetic, and pressure all mines be put together in a composite mine?
Very much. See, it is nothing but a mine circuit. See, a mine circuit was nothing but a relay mechanism. So there is a battery. The current has to reach the detonator. So first could be, let's say the relay could be an acoustic relay. So let me say I've set for the acoustic parameter at particular intensity. If that comes, so the relay circuit is complete. Then you can have the magnetic relay. The magnetic relay could have whatever ship count after the 6th count, 7th count. So each time, just like an alarm clock, the counter turns. When it comes to the correct thing, you're like your building. So second circuit is completed. Then you can have the pressure signature. So when the pressure signature, so when all the 3 are completed, then you get the detonation. So they can be put in parallel.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, World War II, do you think there's a strategic blunder by Germany who wanted to cut off the supply shifting to UK, not deploying their minefields in the North Atlantic properly, because probably something was detected through the aerial mine link that they couldn't do that, and they had to use all of their U-boats instead?
In fact, in the Second World War, the Allied forces used the mine warfare to much more advantage. If you look at it, Germany thought that they have to go and, they were more on the offensive and trying to, along with the land forces, which are capturing one country after the other. So they decided more of going to that rather than even protecting their own using the mine. By the way, Germans did advance. Their war machinery was continuously working. I read long ago, but I could not locate any authentic to say that I told you about the aircraft flying low. They said if it's a surface mine, say up to 1 meter below, even that shadow, which is causing a photocell, can explode the mine.
Okay.
Imagine that was but not developed. There is no literature available on that. I only read it in passing, which means instead of a fourth influence, it could be a photocell. So if there's a shadow, if the ship passing in a certain amount of light is deprived of the mine thing, that can act as an influence.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
Any naval exercises have been carried out along with the other countries? If so, whether this mining exercise has been done?
We have not carried out any mine exercise with any of the navies. Even our own thing, which has been more. I'll tell you frankly, sorry to say, in the Navy, we do not have a separate cadre even for mines and mine clearance. They are part of the anti-submarine warfare. Only we do not have a special code. It was just 3 officers of us who did the course in USSR, and we prepared the documents and gave. Thereafter, there has been no specific specialist officers for mine and mine countermeasures. The anti-submarine officer of the ships, it comes to his department. So only, and even except for, I think, 4 or 5 vessels, we have not even carried out dummy drills. Now, we have not even put a temporary mine rail on a bigger ship to see how they can use it. We have not even used a single merchant ship for an exercise for carrying out mines. Even to use dummy mines, no, unfortunately, we have not done it so far.
Thank you.
Okay. If
Sir,
there are no, yeah. Please.
Sir, you have not mentioned about degaussing.
I mentioned passive mine sweeping. I spoke about degaussing. I mentioned already.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no questions, thank you very much, Hector, for a very, very informative talk.
Thank you.
It's been, absolutely absorbing. Ladies and gentlemen, please play back while we play the national anthem. Vignesh?
Yes, sir. I will take care. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Can we leave now?
Yeah, you can.
Hector, your mobile number can I have?
Yes. Right on.
Yeah, go ahead.
You will wait. We'll play the national anthem and I'll give it to you.
No, please. Go ahead.
886.
86.
11.
11.
44.
44.
160.
160. Thank you.
Yeah. Where are you?
No, one more figure.
886.
986.
No, 886.
886. Okay.
What's happened, Vignesh? Again, you got a hiccup. All right, then we'll close it.
You can sing.
Yeah. It's not working, Vignesh. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Okay.
Got a house full today.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for such a great talk. Thank you.
God bless. Thanks to be part of this. Nice to be part of y'all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Hector. Good night.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Nice to see you after a long time, Poppen, sir.
Bolo.
I said, very nice to see you for many years, sir.
I know. Only thanks to Captain Ramchandran that we could come onto this forum.
He told me 3 times, don't miss this. So I'm standing here, sir. Southern.
Yeah. Do come again. Sorry, I think that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Rama, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commodore.
Good night, Ramu.
Good night, sir.
Good night, Chris, sir. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Devu Ashot. Captain Umita is from you from Merchant Navy, is it?
No, sir. GVK Unitin is ex-Navy.
Ex-Navy. Now with this.
He settled in Bombay.
Now, are you with Merchant Navy now? No. No, you're retired.
He didn't go to Merchant Navy.
Okay, you retired and settled in Bombay.
Settled in Bombay.
Okay. Nice to have people from all over India. Slowly we are becoming, expanding our reach. Very good. We have people from Delhi, people from... Thank you, Captain Nidan. He is Captain, Commander, what's his rank?
Commander Unitan.
Commander Unitan, thank you for attending. Colonel Krishnaswamy has left. Okay.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
Well organized. Good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Adishu. Thank you. Thank you. Abhishek is there. Nice. Thank you. Devi Ashok. Thank you for attending. Everybody. You're dwindling. Okay, good night, everybody. I'm closing the meeting. Do attend our upcoming meeting again. Next Sunday, we have Indian Artillery, yesterday, today, and tomorrow by Lieutenant General Shankar. Please do attend. Another interesting talk.